Yo, what's up? It's Ritzy Roy here. Today's video is actually going to be a remake of one I did, I think, about a week or two ago. We were talking about off-meta supports. I'm going to go for the format we went for, and it was in support synergies. I'm going to go for that format where I had like a PowerPoint, but I also recorded some footage to play in the background in League. So in between slides, I'll be switching between some League gameplay, and that is just to break up the visual monotony so we have different things to look at. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. We were talking about off-meta supports today, and before we can get into, I guess, the pros and cons and stuff for that, we need to understand their history. Why do they exist? The reason behind the phenomenon is what I wrote. There's a support paradox that we're gonna have to talk about that explains what makes these calamities come about. All right. So, Riot designed the support role so it's beginner friendly while also having a high skill ceiling. The characters tend to be really straightforward, so they're simple to pick up, and they also are meant to function on low gold, the support's budget. The other roles tend to have more replayability because they're not on support budget. They can build different things, and they have stuff like item spikes due to their build variety, and most of them have combos. The character we're going to use for this is on Nautilus because Nautilus is, I guess, the epitome of the super straightforward support that his skill ceiling is just tied to the role having a high skill ceiling, not him. Nautilus just wants to build tank every single game. There's not too much, like, I guess, build variety on what you're doing with him. He's going to build tank every single game, and you're not really going to feel his item spikes too much because the main difference between him and early and late game is he takes longer to die and he can CC you for longer. The Nautilus combos, they're pretty straightforward. You're going to press Q on people, you're going to click R on them, and sometimes you're going to auto attack to stun them. But the thing you're mainly doing is CCing people. When you're playing Nautilus, you are the CC bot, and no matter, I guess, like, the state and stuff of the game, you are pretty much always going to be the tanky CC bot. That never really changes, I guess. So this leads to characters like Nautilus, the more traditional supports in the game. They end up being, I guess, boring to play long term. It kind of is why I'm saying the other roles are more replayable. Because when you first pick up Nautilus, you'll probably have some fun with him, but as you're playing a lot of games with Nautilus, you're spamming matches with him, you might eventually get tired of just pressing Q and then auto attacking, then pressing R. You can keep doing that up to Challenger. Nautilus is a good character, but how good it is versus how fun it is are not always the same thing. And Nautilus is one of the examples of a really good character that isn't really fun. The community has taken it into their own hands to deal with this problem. They ask Riot all the time for more fun supports. It's what led to things like Senna and Pike being created. But when they can't get more fun supports, they sometimes will just play. They'll just play characters that aren't meant for support in the role. There's nothing stopping you in League of Legends from playing whoever the hell you want in whatever role you want to play it in. So a lot of the times people will just pick random things like, well, not random, they'll pick things that could sort of work but aren't the best, like Silas, maybe Nico, Camille, what's another good a common one I see? Oh, Timo, that's the one I used to play. They'll pick things like Timo and stuff like that in the role because it's fun for them. Now here's the support paradox we mentioned earlier. It's gonna be fun for you because as support, no matter how garbage your pick is, you don't really lose on support. You can't fall behind because you have the World Atlas item in your inventory. I think we mentioned in a couple of videos back. World Atlas is the support unique item that's going to be generating gold for you infinitely. So no matter how bad you're doing, you're always going to be getting paid. You don't have to farm and walk up like other people do. So for that reason, you can do suboptimal stuff that your team is having zero fun with, but you're going to be having fun and enjoying the game. And it can kind of get you stuck in this, I guess, this feedback loop of you play something garbage, but it doesn't feel garbage to you because you're playing the game, you're doing damage. You pick Timo support, and you might lose the game, but then after the game's over, you look at the stats and you did the most damage in the game. So how is this bad? I had a lot of fun while playing. It didn't feel garbage, and I had good stats. And that is due to the support paradox of you can't ever really lose on support. You can't lose. Your team can lose. And specifically, your ADC can lose really hard. So that's that first slide done. We're going to go to the next one. If you can't lose on support and you're always going to have fun on it, why not just always draft off meta stuff like Teemo? And honestly, that does happen. There are some people that just spam Teemo or Shaco support. I'm going to use, well, I googled the image of a sinking ship for this one because this is supposed to represent your teammates trying to, I guess, keep things above water. So you run into 4 main problems when you pick these off meta picks. You have drafting issues. Coordinating with your ADC is going to be really hard. Your teammates are just automatically going to tilt. And starvation. You're going to be gold hungry the whole game. It's the first one. Drafting. This slide is kind of complex. It doesn't have a lot of bullet points, but there's a lot of, I guess, more difficult issues to cover here. So, in League of Legends, the 5 archetypes typically have, well, the 5 roles typically have archetypes that you expect to see in those roles. Within those roles, some archetypes will bleed into each other or they will overlap. Top and jungle, this image is really good for it. There's a Mordekaiser and a Set. Top and jungle will typically have bruisers that play in it. Now, you don't only have to play a bruiser in top and jungle, but a lot of bruisers like to go top and a lot of bruisers like to go jungle, which is fine. This comp over here is okay. Mid lane, you will typically see either mages or assassins, and Galio, he's kind of just one of the few outliers of a tank that'll go mid, but you're usually going to see a mage or an assassin that you should expect here. In bot lane, a lot of people just call it ADC, you know, technically the name is bottom, but in bot lane, you're typically going to see marksman. In the current day, in the current season, you're seeing mages now. That's because Riot kind of messed up with the whole 6 item change or whatever. It makes mages really powerful, debatably stronger than marksmen in certain situations, but for the most part you're going to see either marksmen or mages in the bot lane category. In support, there are 2 roles that don't usually overlap too much with the other people, and that's going to be engaged supports and enchanters. You will sometimes see engage like characters in top lane, but for the most part you don't see enchanters and engagers in other places. You only see that in support. And that's kind of the strength of drafting the normal supports, is that you can fill in things that, I guess, wouldn't be fillable by the other archetypes and roles. When you play off-meta supports in the support slot, you're just playing characters that belong in the other roles, and you basically miss out on, I guess, the unique archetypes that you would get in support. This can lead to you either doubling up on damage or just doubling up on archetypes in general, and it's typically not bringing out the full strength of support, which is the ability to fill in for your team's needs. The other roles can do that, but support is usually the best at filling in for what your team needs because you have the most variety of champions you can pick in support. And since it's a 5v5, it's not just a 2v2 game, the moment you pick something off meta, you're in like during every team fight, you will always be at that, usually you will be at that disadvantage unless you win your lane. But that's going to go to our next point, which is to win lane, you got to work with your ADC. We have a few points to cover here. I'm going to start off with the first one immediately. ADCs usually will have I guess like a database or a gathered pool of knowledge on how they need to act and behave with their duo. For example, when you're playing with Milio, you know Milio, when he presses W, he gives you that increased attack range and a healing. So when Milio clicks W on you, you want to start shooting them and kite them out. If you're playing with Leona, you know Leona has a lot of CC. She's going to stun people and set you up. So you want to pick something like a Draven that can benefit off that window of CC you play. When you pick off-meta duos, a lot of ADC players will not be familiar with it. They might know what the character does, but they might not 100% know how they need to interact with it. An example would be, let's say how Sylas engages on you. He does have the ability to engage and do damage like a Pyke would, but the way he does it is unique. He has his first dash, which is E1, Then he has his second dash, which is E2, where he extends his chains and stuns you. That interaction, the ADC can know what it is, but it might be weird following up on it because they might not be used to the timing of E1, E2, and they might not be used to the CC duration. If you're playing Caitlyn or something like that, it's a common thing for Caitlyn to put a trap beneath your feet when you're CC'd. But the Caitlyn player might not know how long Silas E will keep you in place for, so they might mess up. Losing is not an option if you're actually trying to win the game, not if you're trying to have fun. If you're trying to win the game on off-meta supports, because they are not made to function on the support budget, because they, like we mentioned earlier, they are characters that belong to the other roles. They're the gold-reliant, the farming characters. However, winning is harder when your duo doesn't know what you're doing, because at the end of the day, it's a 2v2 at the start of the game, and your ADC has to be on the same page as you. So you have to win, but it's harder to win because your damage dealer, low-key, is probably confused half the time you're playing with them. So it's typically pretty trash. However, some off-meta picks can become pretty good with the right duo. We're going to talk about more of this later. I put this in asterisks for a certain reason. Alright, before we get on with the rest of the slide, I just want to make this side note. I read my comments sometimes, and I also look at other educational content in League, and I will sometimes see this saying in high elo. Basically, people are saying stuff like, in high elo, you don't have to deal with this. I don't like that terminology. Not terminology. I don't like that line of thinking too much, because the majority of the player base in League and the people that are going to be watching most of the videos are not going to be in this high elo. They're trying to get to this high elo. So we're putting out stuff to try and help the community, and our main line of thinking is, oh, let's put stuff to help out high elo players, or stuff that's only going to work in high elo. You're, I guess, appealing to the small minority, the small elite of the community, when there's a big chunk of people that also still want help that aren't in high elo. It'd be like you're making a tutorial, an exercise tutorial about how to have proper form, and then basically everything you're talking about is stuff that's only gonna matter once you're at the tippy top of doing it. Like, it's stuff for only people that can bench 450 pounds or something crazy, you know? Like, the people that are coming to watch this are probably not going to benefit. Most of them aren't going to benefit for it. So I don't gear my content towards people that are in high elo and stuff like that. I hope that makes sense as to why my videos are the way they are and stuff like that. And also, I don't like, this isn't just for educational stuff in general, but I kind of don't like the, there's a mentality in League of Legends where we kind of just look at, I guess, players that are not above, like, Diamond. Some people look at Masters players and call them, like, piggies, but I don't like the mentality, because at the end of the day, if you look at the rank distribution of League of Legends, it's kind of skewed. What you consider low elo probably isn't actually low elo, it's actually just the middle rank, or it's just the average of the game. If I remember properly, I think the most highest populated rank in the game is, I think, it's either gold or silver. It's not like something like Overwatch where platinum is going to have the most people in it. Actually, platinum in this game is it's above average. So this game's platinum is more like Overwatch's diamond, technically speaking, which it's a little complicated. It's on a 1-to-1 ratio between games, but the idea of, I guess, calling people low elo trash cans, or treating everyone that isn't a certain rank like they're just garbage, is kind of crazy, because that's the majority of the population, you know? And a majority of players aren't trash, they're just in the average ranks, or in the average distributions of things. If you're in Iron, I'm not calling you bad, but if you're in Iron, you are below average. If you look at the rank distribution, it isn't common to be Iron, so you are below average if you're in Iron, but I'm not gonna, you know, berate you and call you trash, because I just think that's messed up, and I don't like doing that. If people are actively looking for help, then I don't see the point of making fun of people that want help. Alright, back to our PowerPoints. Next point as to why picking off meta supports suck, and well, it doesn't suck, but why it's risky to do, and why it sucks to have them on your team. Even if you don't tilt, someone on your team is probably going to tilt the moment they see somebody lock in Teemo, which they have a fair reason for this. If we're in ranked play and somebody locks in Teemo, that probably means 9 times out of 10, the person playing Teemo is not going to be as serious about winning the game as the person playing Nautilus. And even if they are serious about playing the game, about winning winning the game, they are willing to put the rest of their team at a disadvantage so they can have fun. Which, once you put it in that perspective, it kind of makes sense why people tilt the moment they see off-meta supports. Even if you yourself aren't trying to lose the game, just having your odds of winning are they're frustrating, and it kind of messes with people. So yeah, people tilt, they FF quick. That's why I showed I found the stamp of the FF15 emote from Jinx, because this really does happen. I see it all the time whenever I'm playing ADC and my support picks something weird. People will tilt. Even if I keep a cool head, I can't stop my other teammates from tilting. All right, the last thing we talked about in conflicts was starvation. You are gold hungry when you're playing these off meta picks. These characters are not built to function on the support budget, so you will typically be desperate to try to get kills. If you're playing Silas, like I keep bringing him up, but he's one of my favorite off meta supports. I think he's secretly kind of good, even though his win rate is trash. But if you are playing Silas, actually I think right now it's not that bad, you're going to want to get kills to buy Storm Surge or to feed your Dark Seal. You need to do that, because if you don't get kills, something like a Leona or our GOAT we mentioned earlier, Nautilus will beat you by literally just sitting in lane and completing his support quest and building tank. His items are cheaper than yours, and Riot made him to function without a lot of money. So if you are in a war of attrition where nothing's happening bot lane, you are going to lose. You are bleeding. You are slowly dying if you are playing these off-meta picks. And to stop the bleeding, you have to try and kill the enemy. But it's super easy to int because you're going to get desperate for plays and stuff like that. So that's another downside to it. Now, we went over all the downsides. Here's where we flip the script and we start to actually talk about the good side, or I guess the good of off meta. There are certain off meta picks in this game that are basically not even off meta, but they were technically not made to be played in a support role, but they're just so good at doing it that they have become a staple part of this game's support picks. If you look back at the PowerPoint, you see Nico and Poppy are the two characters I'm showing for that. They are so exceptional at the support role that they basically have just become a part of it due to the fact that they have high CC, they function off low gold, and they're both incredibly good at roaming to your lane. Poppy can just come out of nowhere and just push you into walls while having no money. She doesn't need crazy stats to make her game plan work, and the same goes for Nico. Nico, when she roams to your lane with R while she's like cloaked as a minion, it doesn't matter how many stats she has or nothing like that. That's going to be strong at all points of the game. Strongest early because of the way she's an early game character, but she's never really weak no matter how she's doing. So that's why she's just super good and very viable. There are more characters like that. I call them the mysterious supports. I searched up a picture of a mysterious woman for this one and just made this the background. But the mysterious supports in this game, we kept bringing them up. Silas, Nico, Elise, and like LeBlanc and stuff like that. Nico, we can take off this list, but they're not very common picks, but they are actually kind of good. They can be drafted, and I think they actually they ignore the issue we talked about earlier where I was like, they don't draft well. You can draft some of these characters super well. They fill in spots for your team, and you could just straight up win with them. Like, I think they are pretty much equally as strong as a normal support. However, they're mysterious, they're not common, and they still have the debuff of your ADC and your team might not know what you're doing, and your team still might tilt if you play it, so have caution. Here's my favorite slide. We ended our last off-meta video with this, and I'm going to rehash the point. There is forbidden tech in League of Legends. What do I mean by forbidden tech? There are certain off-meta picks in this game that when you play them in tandem with the proper, I guess, duo, they become super powerful. Rengar and Ivern are two junglers that usually have no damn business going bot lane. Rengar is a melee assassin that can jump from bushes, that when he goes into a bush, he gets like a jump passive, and Ivern is like a enchanter character that's designed for jungle. He's a little freaky. Now, if you take either of these people bot lane by themselves, they're trash. Like, they're not really worth it. Rengar can kind of work with certain picks, but for the most part, he's on the lower end of viability. However, if I break down their kits, I can explain why they are strong together. So, like we mentioned earlier, Rengar is the melee assassin. He's really short range, but he gets a mobility buff when he's sitting inside of a bush. This combos really well with the fact that Ivern is an enchanter that can heal you, and he also has, not heal, he can shield you, and he also has the ability to place bushes down anywhere in the map. So suddenly, Rengar's weakness of only being able to use leap from specific parts of the map is completely mitigated by the fact that Ivern could just bring those parts on the map to you and just allow you to leap from anywhere. So this duo that's of two misfits, of two trash cans that have no business being in bot, is suddenly actually a really scary duo that you could, I don't know if it's better than the normal S tier duos, but you can definitely fight a majority of the bot lane compositions and definitely win with this duo. Now the downside to it is that these aren't common characters for either player to play. Rengar is one of the hardest assassins in the entire game, and Ivern's not stupidly hard, but like most support players don't just have a pocket Ivern they can pull out. So from either side of this, you shouldn't just queue for a random match and just say, I hope this guy plays Rengar, or I hope this guy plays Ivern, because chances are he probably doesn't. And if you're forcing someone to play it, they're probably going to be unfamiliar with it. So how do we mitigate this issue? We mitigate the issue and we, I guess, gain access to the forbidden tech by getting a duo. Off-meta picks are not garbage if you are running them with someone you trust, and that someone you trust plays the proper counterpart for you. If you have a friend that can do a bot lane with you, it's best to arm yourself with knowledge and head to these links down here where you can see strong bot lane duos, and you can start cooking up powerful synergies. Because Rengar Ivern is not... There's more forbidden tech in the game besides Rengar Ivern. It's not common knowledge. You gotta do a little research and digging, but if you can look at the win rates and the statistics, maybe even head to Reddit or something, you can find out stuff that's strong. So good luck with that. Remember, you need a duo. Consent is key when you're playing off meta. Okay, that was my final point. Thank you for watching, and before I close out, I'm gonna try something new. I heard if you say like and subscribe on YouTube, those two buttons will light up. So please like and subscribe. I usually don't say that, but I hope those things light up. This is Ritzy Roy signing out.